She lit a lamp, a light of courage, kindness, and strength. From that glow, Lumina was born, to carry her spirit forward and to help every IIT Bombay woman shine. Lumina celebrates the legacy and future of IIT Bombay's women through a community built on support, inspiration, and shared growth. Initiated by Anil Shirsagar in honor of his aunt Shanta Patekar, it acknowledges the unique challenges women face in balancing personal and professional aspirations. At the heart of Lumina are its three pillars: events and workshops that build meaningful connections and empower new skills, the mentorship circle where women connect for guidance and shared growth, and inspiring narratives, stories that celebrate and uplift IIT Bombay women.
Lumina is an endeavor to create a space where every IIT Bombay women feel seen, supported, and inspired. It is more than just a network. It is a growing circle of connections, mentorship, and shared wisdom. I warmly invite every IIT Bombay woman to be a part of it.
More than a network, it is a growing circle of connection, mentorship, and shared wisdom. Every IIT Bombay woman is invited to be a part of it. To every woman who has ever called IIT Bombay home, this is your space. Come, be a part of the vibrant circle of connection, mentorship, and shared journeys.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining. Thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Shivani Govil, and I am from the batch of 1992. And along with me is Vinaya Kapoor, who is from a dear friend and also from my batch. And some of you might have guessed, batch of 92 as well. We are so happy to be here with you today. We have over 250 people who have registered, and already from the chat and the names and things I'm seeing in the chat, it feels like I'm amongst a group of dear friends. So welcome, everyone. And before we get started, we wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about Lumina. Lumina is an initiative where we want to bring together all the women from IIT Bombay, whether you're a student or an alum. Our goal is to create a thriving community where we can all connect with each other, support each other through our journeys, whether it's in school, whether it's in our personal lives, or whether it's in our professional careers, and help each other to achieve our full potential. Vinaya and I will be your host today, but there's a strong team that has been working on this over the course of several months.
Thank you, Shivani. So Shivani said, Shivani and I serve on the leadership team, which also includes Swati Vora from the class of 1984, Veena Srinivasan, 1995, Jalpa Vyas from DRF, Dipti Date from IIT Bombay Alumni Association, Anil Shirsagar, who also founded IITB Heritage Foundation in the US. Lumina is very greatly supported by IIT Bombay Heritage Foundation and the IIT Bombay Alumni Association. So Lumina was born from a shared vision. Many of us face similar challenges as we navigate through school, work, and life. And lots of demands. Sometimes we're the minority in the school or the workplace. We may be juggling rising careers, young kids, aging parents. So it brings the question of how can we manage it all? And how do we support each other through this journey? So towards that, Lumina is built on three pillars: events and networking to build connections, mentoring circles, and inspiring narratives, of which we're going to have the first two today. So with that, I'm going to hand over back to Shivani.
Thanks, Vinaya. I also wanted to acknowledge and share some of the previous work that has been going on to connect women from IIT. This includes our virtual conference that we had in 2021, where some of you were involved, the Gen Zero Women's Initiative, as well as several local chapter events and get-togethers and networking. And with Lumina, our goal is to make this a living engagement and to keep all of us connected as we go forward. That this is a network that builds and grows with each of you. So what do we have in store for you today? As Vinaya alluded to, we have two inspiring speakers. But before that, we wanted to have Anil Shirsagar, who is one of the initiators of this event, share a few words. So we'll start with Anil, then we'll have a fireside chat with Kavita Bala, followed by a presentation from Sharda. After that, we will open up for question and answers, and then we'll wrap up with some closing thoughts. So with that, let me hand over to Anil.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Anil Shirsagar, as Shivani has said. I'm from the batch of 1975. In 1996, I had the privilege of co-founding the IIT Bombay Heritage Foundation. This experience of building a networking platform, securing institutional support, and creating value for alumni provided me with valuable insights into the critical success factors for such endeavors. My upbringing was shaped by my aunt, Durga Shirsagar, who after marriage became Shanta Patekar. She was one of the earliest women college graduates in Madhya Pradesh in the early 1930s. Her dedication to empowering women to realize their potential led her to become principal of Seva Sadan Training College, where she served for several decades. Her lifelong passion was to uplift thousands of underprivileged women. Inspired by her remarkable example, I'm driven to take action for IIT Bombay women. Despite the ongoing struggle for gender equality in the US, women still earn significantly less than their male counterparts. Their careers often take a backseat during childbearing years, and they face challenges such as glass ceiling, workplace discrimination, and limited support structures. I firmly believe that addressing this cause is of utmost importance. The IIT Bombay women population, comprising students and alumni, exceeds 10,000, which was a surprise to me, and continues to grow rapidly. Recognizing this, I've decided to initiate a focus program to tackle these pressing issues. My approach consists of two key components. Firstly, I'll collaborate with these remarkable women leaders representing alumni associations in the US, that's Heritage Foundation, and India, which is AA, as well as IIT Bombay's Dean's Office to develop Lumina, a platform dedicated to supporting IIT Bombay women. I hope you all will participate and make it a grand success for all women. Secondly, I'll establish a dedicated space for women alumni within the upcoming Alumni Center, which will be named after my aunt, Shanta Durga Lumina Enclave. This space will serve as a vibrant hub for women alums to gather, network, share life experiences, and forge new connections. It will also provide a platform for campus students to meet visiting alumni and draw inspiration from their journeys. And now I'll turn it over to Shivani and Vinay.
Thank you, Anil, for sharing that incredible inspiration. Now, I would like to introduce our first guest, Kavita Bala. Kavita is a graduate from the Computer Science Department of IIT Bombay and the 17th Provost of Cornell University. Prior to current appointment, I'm tearing up as I'm speaking about her, it's amazing. Prior to her current appointment, she has held many distinguished roles, including serving as the inaugural Dean and Chair of Computer Science Department at Cornell. She has received multiple awards and recognitions, including the SIGGRAPH Computer Graphics Achievement Award and the IIT Bombay Distinguished Alumnus Award. She received her master's and PhD from MIT. Welcome, KB, and a privilege to have you.
Thank you, Vinaya. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say before we start off, it is just such an honor to be included in this presentation today. I was tearing up and I was hearing from Anil about the support for women. We need it. This kind of system is really needed. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. It's deeply meaningful work, and I'm just so delighted to be part of, do my small part in such a big, grand vision of what we should be doing.
Thank you, Kavita. And just a quick background bite for everyone on the call. Kavita, Vinaya, and I are all from the same batch of 1992. So if I forget to call you Dr. Bala and call you KB sometimes, please excuse me. All right, so we wanted to kick off with a few questions for you, Kavita. First of all, we would love to hear some of your favorite memories from IIT and how that helped shape who you are today and also face some of the current challenges in your career that you faced.
So thank you firstly, and do call me KB. That's what I go by. Actually, that name, which actually took off in IIT, has stuck with me my whole life. Everybody calls me that. So I'm KB even on campus here at Cornell. I've been at Cornell now for the past 26 years, and that's how I'm known. Some memories from IIT. And I'll say walking to the lake, probably that was one of my funnest memories. It was this real break that we would get walking to in the middle of the night at midnight to go and get noodles from the not so healthy noodles from that midnight snack place. Mood Indigo, I was involved with organizing it 1 year, and that was just a blast. And of course, working in the computing lab, which was very cold for Indian standards at that time. Now I live in Ithaca, New York. So I kind of am amused by what I used to think. Those are some of my memories. When I think about sort of, you asked a question about preparation. That's a great question. I'll tell you what I'm going to share now is not something I understood when I was going through it, but it's something I've thought about after it. So I have to take you back. Remember, we were there from 88 to 92. So for the students who are listening online, they have no idea what we're talking about. But we had one phone in the lobby for all of H10. We were in Hostel 10, H10. No cell phones, no computers in your room, no way to collaborate. And H10 was on one side of all the academic buildings. I think that's still true. And, there's the corridor. The CSE department, Computer Science and Engineering department, was really at the other end of the corridor. And all the other hostels were on the other side of campus. So what this meant concretely is because it wasn't easy to find people to work with, I worked on a lot of assignments by myself. So I'll say in the first year, we had a lot of joint assignments with you. So we were all in classes together. That was a lot of fun. We could work together with my friends at H10. But when I went into computer science, I was the only woman. And it was very isolating, and everybody started doing their work late at night, and you couldn't really walk across campus in the middle of the night to work with your colleagues. So what was isolating then, it turns out, has given me a lot of resilience now. When I'm faced with a tough situation, I feel like, hey, I can do it. I've done it before. I've been all alone, and it's fine. It's going to be just fine. So I'll just say that, as which I didn't at all appreciate when I was living there. But now that I've experienced it, I think that's a really important part of what it forged in me as how I approach new problems. The other lesson I got to learn, again in retrospect, I never figured that when I lived there, is that you should learn from your peers. Which you two are my peers. We were together in 1992, but many of the people in computer science, I'm still in touch with my colleagues from them. You all know this. IIT is intensely competitive. All the other people in your program are like you, the best and the brightest. But getting past the competition and learning to form deep friendships with them will serve you really well for life. Life is not a competition. These peers are amazing people. They can be some of your best collaborators, your best, they can be your network going forward of people you can lean on. So they will go on to do great things just like you. It's not about you or them. Everybody's going to do great things. And having that friendship to fall back on is really important. So I'll go back to the beginning of this question. For example, Vinay and Shivani, we were both in H10 together. One of my best memories is us crowding in each other's bedrooms, Vinaya's bedroom often, laughing a lot, eating snacks together. And this still remains some of the best memories of my time at IIT.
That's so lovely to hear, KB, and brings back so many fond memories. Well, let's fast forward to today and your role at Cornell. Tell us a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis. What does your day look like?
So I am now the provost of Cornell University, and I'll tell you, nobody knows what a provost does. Like, people know what a department chair does, they kind of know what a dean does, and everybody thinks they know what a president does, but the provost, nobody knows. So I'll tell you a little bit about what my role is. So the provost role is actually different in different schools. I think that's why there's a lot of confusion about it, because every school has its own definition of what a provost does. I am at Cornell, the provost role is, and I found the best way to explain this is chief academic officer and chief budget officer, and partly chief operating officer. So that's maybe the way to think about it. And the provost is the first deputy to the president. So the president is away, I step in to whatever role needs to be filled in when they're gone. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those because it gives a sense. It's a very large portfolio. As a chief academic officer, I'm in charge of all aspects of teaching, of research, and of outreach. So that means curriculum, courses, what courses are offered, what majors are offered, what minors are offered, what the departments are doing, what colleges cover. We have different colleges at Cornell, like there's the law school, which is different from engineering, which is different from arts and sciences. Figuring out what they cover and also how they work together, tenure and promotion for faculty. That's all on sort of the teaching, the academic side, if you will. On the research side, Cornell is a leading research institution. What centers and institutes which should we work on, right? So I'm leading the AI transformation of the university, but also nanotechnology, quantum technology. We have a synchrotron, which supports research across the world, actually, the humanities, international research like we have in our Anaudi Center, the Lab of Ornithology. I don't know how many of you are birders. If you care about birds, India has a very strong connection actually with the Lab of Ornithology. Cornell is the leading place for birding, essentially. And Cornell's motto, which I actually love, and it very fits very nicely with Lumina's goals. Cornell's motto is any person, any study. We had women way earlier than anybody else, any of our Ivy colleagues, women, students of color, international students, all we've leaned in. And so that's actually resonates very much with the part of the job that I do. So supporting all of these intellectual disciplines and these people, that's the job. It's I feel like a kid in a candy store. For some of you, in India, you may not know Cornell is a land grant university. That's an American concept, came from the Morrill Act. It means we work with farmers and we engage with the broader community. I actually love that part of the work. We're transforming how food is produced that feeds the entire planet. So all of those together, and as chief budget officer, I get to fund all of these exciting initiatives. So those are sort of all of the different pieces of the role a little bit. I can go on. I can go on. There's a lot more, but I'll just stop there and turn it back to you.
So that was an incredible view into what your role covers, Kavita, KB. And in particular, you mentioned chief academic officer. So maybe with that, could you tell us, and this is something I've heard top of mind as well, and we're seeing it all around us, how do you see the future of education in an AI-first world?
That is an incredibly important question. It's a great question. And it is a question that I think we and I was just at an Ivy Plus Provost meeting. I led the AI session there and had each of us talk about what we're doing. We are all regard this as one of the most important strategic priorities we need to focus on. So let me talk a little bit. I'm an AI researcher myself. I work in the field of computer vision and computer graphics. And in computer vision, I do my work in visual recognition. So when you as a human being look at a mug, how do you know it's a mug? So what does your brain do that tells you it's a mug? Those are the kinds of questions I've worked on for the past 25 plus years. And I had really a front row seat on the deep learning kind of revolution when it took off over the past 15 years. So bringing that actually to my role was an important part of why I took on this role. I felt we all know AI is fundamentally going to transform society, our daily lives. And the question is, how should a university be an AI forward university while this transformation is taking place? And as you know, universities, it can move a little slowly, and AI moves very, very fast. So the questions that we've been asking here are, firstly, the opportunity is tremendous. New scientific breakthroughs, new medical breakthroughs, better health, medicine, quality of life, better transportation, automation, better, going to Mars, new kinds of industry. All of that is on the positive. And there are strong negatives also with and downsides with AI, including the deep polarization we see in society, where algorithmically oriented polarization, where people stay in their little bubble and stop understanding each other. That's playing a big role in the loss of public trust we have here in the United States and really across the world. People don't trust their institutions anymore. And this monetization of polarization by companies and monetization of outrage is contributing. It's one piece of it. There are many pieces of it. Deep fakes, they take your faith away and you're not sure what you're seeing, whether it's AI generated. All of those are the downsides. So what we're doing here is really approaching AI actually in all three pillars: teaching, research, and then how we run the university. And I'll talk about each piece of that. In education, everybody needs to be definitely AI knowledgeable. So the students actually embrace the technology quickly. The faculty and the staff have to be brought along a little more for the ride. And while the students embrace it quickly, there's still this question of using AI ethically and in a socially responsible way. And I think that's the part that is getting lost. And it is not in the interest of big commercial companies to focus on social responsibility. That is exactly where the university plays a very important role. So we have some of the world leaders in AI ethics and AI tech policy, and their work, I think, is going to be crucial to the future of how AI is integrated in society so that it doesn't deepen those polarized views and actually brings us together. There are a lot of great opportunities of this technology, as I said, and exploring that instead of the differences is where we need important work to happen. The other is, of course, in research. How we do research is fundamentally going to change with AI. So Cornell, again, I have these initiatives that I support very much, is doing work in AI for science, for example, having AI drive those breakthroughs and change how we do science across the world. So universities are approaching the teaching and research. How we even run our universities, fundamentally, that's true for any organization. AI is going to transform our government, our institutions. And if done badly, it can really go south. So doing it right is a big part of what I think is, again, the universities can contribute in that thinking and in the thought leadership that is required in that space. So I'm very excited about all of these, this part of sort of how we are making the university an AI forward university, and as a model really that I'm hoping for other universities to take on.
Thank you, KB. That was an incredible overview of the various elements and things to consider in an AI-first world. We'll switch gears a little bit to our last question, our last formal question. And I also want to encourage all our attendees, if you have questions, please post them on the Q&A tab, because our two speakers will be taking questions at the end. So I'm going to go back, KB, to the last question. What advice do you have for women who are trying to navigate their student life, their career, family, and growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll say there's no easy answers on this one, but I'll tell you sort of what has worked for me. So I have two sort of pieces of advice. One is follow your passion. This is really critically important. Follow your passion and do what is right for you at that moment of time. Don't listen to what others tell you about what you should do with your life. Do what is right for you. I'll come back to what I mean by that. And the other is be a lifelong learner. And this, we're talking about the AI transformation. My generation will evolve a few times. Your generation, which is the students who are in this call, will have to change their careers many, many times over their lifetime, just because the world is changing very fast. So if you're willing to be a lifelong learner, it's not your 4 years at IIT it's your whole life. You need to be changing and redefining yourself, evolving your thinking. That's a critical piece. So I'll just come a little bit. I was the only woman in my computer science department in IIT. I came to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, for my PhD. There were 4 women in that group, and I was like, wow, this is so many women. And of course, they thought there were just not enough women, and they were right. I'll just say with great pride at Cornell, through work that amazing my colleagues have been doing, we have 37% women in our computer science program. 37%. That is a huge transformation over 25 years, and it is something we should continue to enable. And so, things. So I just wanted to put that out there, but I'll say, following my passion and, helping in these kinds of initiatives was one of the things that was important to me. But reinvent yourself. I changed my research areas. I was started in compilers. I went to graphics and computer vision. Very difficult to change your field in grad school, but I'm so glad I did it because it fueled then the next 30 years of my research, which is why I am, I got to where I have in my life. And I'll say in my personal life, my husband and I both were we met when we were PhD students at MIT. We both had very intense careers. We're both faculty at Cornell. And firstly, you should follow your passion. I married this wonderful human being, and I do not believe my career would have been anywhere close to what it is without his deep, both intellectual and personal support. But I'll also say personally, we decided to have 3 children, which we did. But that was difficult. So balancing kids, that is probably the hardest thing to do. And it is the reason people feel like they back off their career ambitions. You have to lean into it. We had 3 kids. We were both tenure track at Cornell. And we both, my husband did more than his share, I will say, so that we could continue to maintain our careers in that time. And it was the best decision we made. Our children give us immense joy. My family helped. They would come to the United States and help me with raising the children. My mother and uncle just went back last week. They come in summer. And having that support system is critical. So lean on your support system, figure out what your support system is, but follow your passion. I'll tell you, many people told us having so many kids, bad idea, don't do it. It'll hurt your career. And it did initially set back a little bit, but our careers are long. And remember that, take the long view. It's going to be great. It'll work out. And with your support team, will be a very rewarding experience. So follow your passion.
Okay, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, KB. That was so inspiring. I hope all of you on this call are as inspired as I am. And I'm starting to see some questions come in. So just wanted to share that we'll do the questions together at the end after Sharda speaks. So with that, let me switch to our next speaker, Sharda Srinivasan. Sharda is a professor at the National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bengaluru. Amongst her numerous recognitions, which there are a lot, so I can't go through all of them, otherwise we'll run out of time today. She has received the Padma Shri Award from the Government of India. She was elected the International Honorary Member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and she's received the IITB Distinguished Alumni Award. Sharda earned her PhD from University College of London and a BTech from IIT Bombay. And she has made contributions to the study of archaeology and history of art from the perspective of engineering applications. She has got such a unique perspective and unique career that I'm really looking forward to hearing her speak. Sharda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shivani. And it's a great pleasure to be here in this wonderful event, the Lumina Kickoff event, which provides such an excellent platform for networking between the IITB women alumni and students, and to more broadly encourage women in STEM disciplines and so on. It was wonderful also to hear of the work that Anil has been doing for the cause of women in science, and the wonderful perspectives from Kavita Bala and how to cope with the growing influence of AI in academia and all of these very interesting aspects. So thank you for this opportunity. So I have a presentation and I'm going to proceed to try and share that screen. Well, I was at IIT Bombay from about 83 to 87, and I tried quite hard to find a photograph from that time, but I actually couldn't find one. But I did have this very nice memory from the occasion of having been felicitated by the IITB Gen Zero event in 2022. And this is a photograph from that event. Is my screen clear now? Yeah, okay. And of course, at that time, there was also late Professor Rohini Godbole at ICU dressed us, and you can see her there, diminutive and very dynamic. And she has also compiled a volume on Leelavati's daughters on women in STEM. And she and I also received the Padma Shri at the same time. Well, and these kinds of events, no doubt, encourage mentorship and solidarity and leadership amongst women. So this was a wonderful occasion. Well, I thought I would share today some reflections on the road less traveled, as Robert Frost famously wrote. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Well, I think for men, once they clear the JEE entrance, I don't think they actually face any dilemma about whether they should actually join IIT, because that is really the natural thing from the male perspective. But in those days, for me, that itself was a very big step to actually join IIT after having cleared the IIT entrance without probably expecting to do it. Because in those days, in the 80s, engineering was regarded as a very male-dominated space where women would be a very small minority. And I also had all these other artistic interests, so I wasn't even entirely sure what I was getting into, except the fact that, of course, I also wanted to emulate my father, who was a famous scientist and so on. But I did take the plunge and kept swimming. And though it was both in literally as well, because I was swimming a lot at IIT, both in the pool and also in the lake sometimes. And I would say that though it was challenging, there's no doubt that the IIT experience was transformative for me in many ways. Because once again, after I completed my BTech in engineering physics, I again went off the beaten track and again took that road diversion, which was that rather than getting into mainstream engineering, I felt that I wanted to work in the area of applications of material science in the study of art and cultural heritage so that I could bridge my interest both in science and culture. And here, by way of reflections, I'm looking into a traditional metal mirror made at the workshop in Aranmula in Kerala, which is as reflective as a glass mirror. And I'll touch upon that a bit later in the talk. And I'm also seen here at this old copper mining site in Agni-Gundala in Andhra Pradesh as a doctoral student at the Institute of Archaeology in London, where I joined after my BTech for my PhD work in archaeometallurgy. And you won't believe it, but just a short while after this photograph was taken, there was this rustling sound, and I thought it might be a rabbit, and I turned. And it was a large feline. And then I turned to the person from Hindustan Zinc who was next to me and I said, that wasn't a cheetah, was it? Because it just bounded so quickly and it had spots. And he said, yes, ma'am, you're right. It's not a leopard, it's a cheetah. And although the cheetah has, sort of been extinct in India already, this was, mind you, the Guntur district, which was the old habitat of the cheetah. So this just might well have been one of those stray cubs, which was still alive, but, it hadn't been on record and so on. So it has been that kind of adventurous journey for me. And I should thank the IIT years also for fostering that adventurous element. Well, in my own journey as a woman in science, I must mention the inspiration of my father, Dr. M.R. Srinivasan, who in fact passed away this year at 95 in May. And he was widely regarded as the chief architect of India's civil nuclear program, having led the design and construction of 18 nuclear power plants. And there's no doubt that his descriptions of the fission chain reaction of the uranium-thorium cycle to generate atomic energy and the visits with him to power plants and so on as a child had got me interested in physics. And I would say that at IIT, the subject that I did, engineering physics, was actually where I got a lot of exposure to the aspect of spectrochemical analysis and the ideas of using atomic absorption and fluorescence and spectroscopy in general for the characterization of materials. And that was when I also started reading about how I might try and use materials characterization also in the study of archaeological artifacts. And that also led to my work on the lead isotope ratio analysis in archaeological provenancing, because of the exposure to the uranium, thorium, geochemistry, and so on that my father had already also exposed me to. But despite being a hardcore engineering college, IITB in fact also gave a lot of scope for extracurricular activities and to keep alive our creative or artistic interests. And I also kept up my Bharatanatyam interest while I was there and performed there at the Performing Arts Festival and various other venues. And I acted in Sartre plays and so on. And interestingly, I also acted and worked on a docudrama rather, called Nuclear Winter, which was actually shot at IIT, directed by the late Zulvilani, which was made for Doordarshan, which tried to capture the concerns of college goers to the threat of nuclear holocaust. And of course, I was also trying to depict the incineration of the world due to nuclear holocaust and so on. And of course, that still remains topical. And my father, though he worked on nuclear power issues, he always maintained that mankind as a whole needs to cooperate globally to eliminate nuclear weapons. So that, in fact, remains topical, though we've all lost the print completely and we don't know where that film is now. Well, as I mentioned, I work in archaeometallurgy and materials characterization. And you're looking here at the celebrated Delhi iron pillar, which is the earliest known massive iron forging in the world, with a Gupta Brahmi inscription of 400 CE, which was made by forge welding. And in fact, I have some of the great memories of the welding practicals in IIT. But mind you, it also showed me just how difficult it is to weld. And in these days, of course, we use these high temperature oxyacetylene flames and so on. But you can imagine in those days, how much more difficult it would have been to achieve such high temperatures and to forge these cakes of iron and build them up like pancakes progressively to build up such a fine pillar. And indeed, Akka Mahadevi, the 12th century Kannada Bhakti poetess, said, "Weld so that the weld may not be seen," suggesting that at one level, one needs to transcend the materiality ultimately to a higher dimension. And there's also a photograph here of me at, of course, when I was at the Smithsonian Institution doing scanning electron microscopy in the 90s. So I look a bit closer to what I might have done in the IIT era there. And there is also a photograph here of me looking down a pit burial in the site of Adichanallur, which had some iron implements at the bottom. And that was some 4 months after a hip replacement. Although I did Bharatanatyam, I had a birth condition, or I have a birth condition called developmental hip dysplasia, which eventually means that the shelf life of the hip bones are half the normal hip bones. So I had one hip replaced. And what's interesting is some of the dates for the iron from these sites like Adichanallur and Shivagalai now rank among some of the earliest known. Well, that's a whole topic, but these are all the exciting aspects despite all the hardships of the work we do. Well, IIT is what actually fostered a sense of adventure in me, because I do have this photograph from the mountaineering camp at Manali, which I did when I was in IIT. That was around 86. And we also went to a wildlife camp, I remember, at the Melghat Tiger Reserve. And my mother, Geeta Srinivasan, who is a former chairperson of the World Wildlife Fund, had greatly inspired my adventurous pursuits. And she has also photographed tigers and trekked to Kailas in Tibet. And she actually dragged me on a trek to Amarnath in 1987, just after IIT, which was a nice way to, close that chapter and move on to the next more adventurous one, so to speak. Well, one of the very stimulating subjects in the engineering physics course was, of course, the quizzical world of quantum mechanics. And we did a lot of studies on the square potential wells and the Schrodinger cats, dead or alive, and so on. Of course, my next steps after IIT went in a bit of a different direction with the doctoral thesis on the archaeometallurgical studies on metal icons and Chola bronzes. And of course, that was undoubtedly influenced by my interest in Bharatanatyam, where we perform a lot of the devotional dances related to the Nataraja bronze of the Hindu dancing god Shiva. And Ananda Kumaraswamy also very famously described the Shiva Nataraja as poetry, but nonetheless science, in the way the imagery balances creation as depicted by the drum and destruction as depicted by the fire. But I should also say that in a way, it was not totally disconnected with that exposure to quantum mechanics, which I had in IIT, because at IIT, we also read a lot of these cult classics, and Tower Physics by Fritjof Capra was one of them, as well as Gorel Escher Bach. And so that evoked all these novel philosophical implications of modern physics and quantum mechanics, of less deterministic worldviews, and also touched upon the poetic metaphors of Eastern mysticism. And for instance, Fritjof Capra describes Shiva's dance as the dance of subatomic particles. Of course, these are mainly metaphors, but even then. And there was also Nataraja image, which was installed in the CERN Cosmic Laboratory with some of these writings of Capra and Kumaraswamy and so on. So in a sense, whereas the metaphorical elements of Shiva's dance are described as the Panchabhuta, earth, wind, water, fire, and ether, for me, what was really exciting was also to study the actual elements that went into the making of the bronze alloys and that were then cast into these depictions of Shiva's dance and so on, and to see how the elemental composition and the metallurgical profile could be used to understand the history of technology and provenance, as I had also done using spectrochemical analysis of the trace elements and lead isotope ratios and so on. And I'll just maybe dwell a little bit on one particular case study, which I think in a way also this interest of mine in documenting artisanal technologies that also went back to some of the exposure that I had at IITB, because I got interested in working with the group on rural and appropriate technology through a project I did on the Karjat tribal block. And I have to say at that time, I was also quite inspired by my late uncle, Dr. C.V. Seshadri, who was a professor at IIT Kanpur, who was very interested in all these aspects of developmental technology and so on. And so here what you're looking at is this very beautiful metal mirror, which is made in Kerala. And it is a very skilled traditional mirror technology where a very specific alloy of a heightened bronze of 33% tin was specifically aimed at. And the mirror was made by optimizing the presence of this delta phase of bronze, which is an intermetallic compound of Cu31SN8 and of composition 32.6% tin. And the idea is that this binary delta bronze is very silvery and it's very hard, so it can take a very good polish. And that's why it made a very good mirror material. But the disadvantage is that it's a very brittle alloy, and that's why in some of the bronzes, they also had lead added to reduce the brittleness. But this heightened bronze alloy is very brittle. And so the challenge was to try and devise a way of casting it so that you could get a very, very thin blank, which could be cast with as few defects. And being a very thin blank, it would be then much more homogeneous and not so brittle. So they had a very specially designed crucible cum mold to enable the casting of this blank. And as you're seeing over here, you can see that they're actually trying to, as I said, this is this very brittle silvery alloy, which is then broken into pieces and packed at the top of this crucible cup. And then it is heated face down in the hearth. And this is also the beautiful temple here at Aranmula. And I'm seen here with the late Janardhan Achari and his wife here as well, working on the hearth and so on with all these coconut husks. And so it's very low tech, but it results in quite a high tech product. And there's also me here trying out the hearth, because one of the nice parts of what we do as archaeologists is that we can also have an experimental dimension where we also try and work on these, or at least try and give all of these techniques a hand ourselves. So then what you see is that after the casting process, they retrieve this very silvery blank. And there are also, of course, various other nuances. For instance, the molds itself had to have a very fine slip added to them so that you get a very fine blank with minimum defects. And that's also why it's cast in a closed crucible cum process, so that there is very little of the gases which would cause flaws in the casting. And then we also use a thermal camera here to measure the difference in the temperature, which is also quite significant because there is a very marked temperature differential of several 100 degrees, which also results in a rapid cooling and casting so that it's less heterogeneous and less brittle in that way. And then, of course, there's the next process is the polishing of the blank. And this is also my last slide in case I've been going on for too long. So then the blank is mounted on this wooden polishing board, and it is polished by lapping it several times to and fro. And here too, there are several little nuances. For instance, they actually grind the same alloy and use it as a polishing powder so that the defects get smoothened out and so on. And then you get the best possible mirror finish. And of course, that polishing is done much as we would in a metallurgical polishing context, lapping to get rid of the scratches and so on. And here you also see this very beautiful 13th century sculpture from Belur of a Madanika of the Hoysala period. And you can see she's holding a mirror, which is a very distinct kind of depiction where it almost looks like it is one of those wooden polishing boards, which is being held up and used as a mirror itself. So it could well be that it is a literal depiction of a mirror. And of course, Belur was also patronized by the Queen Shantala Devi, who herself was a dancer. And that's also something that does motivate me to look for evidence of women as patrons, or, for instance, there is a Chola queen as well, Sembian Mahadevi, who also gave a lot of grants to the community of Kamalar or bronze casters and so on. So these nuances also intrigue me quite a bit. And you're also seeing here the largest metal mirror which has ever been cast, which was done by Janardhan Acharya of about a foot long. And I think though they are covered, you also see my husband Digvijay here and our daughter Lasya. And my husband, of course, Digvijay has been a huge source of support also with my anthropological and ethnoarchaeological interests and so on, and accompanied me sometimes to crafts workshops and such like. And in fact, although the late Janardhan Acharya is no more, what is interesting is that the women of the household have also then been taking up the crafts after the master crafts people have passed away and so on. And the daughter, Sudhamal, had actually taken up this whole foundry activity. But very sadly, she had a bad accident and that led to an amputation. So there really is a lot of need to support and sustain many of these marginalized artisans and women and so on. So that is also one of the aspects that motivates the work that I do. And by way of empowering them, I was able to get a commission for Sudhamal's family to make a large mirror. Of course, it wasn't as large as what Janardhan Acharya was able to make in those days, but it was large enough, and it was actually featured in the Rijksmuseum Amsterdam exhibition on Asian bronzes, which ran from the end of 2024 to early 2025. So thank you so much for your attention. It was great to be able to share some of these aspects of my personal and professional journey, and of course to the broader cause of women in STEM, and more power to them and to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharda. That was an incredible story of your journey, and also for highlighting how you've been including women in the work and giving them opportunities all along the way. So we will now go to our Q&A with our speakers. And I've seen there are questions coming, and KB has been responding to them in the Q&A panel. What I don't know is if everybody can see the responses. A couple of them are amazing questions, amazing responses. I can start with one, and since KB has, and this would be for KB, and then maybe Sharda, we can have you respond to one or two of those questions that KB's been responding to in the chat to get your perspective as well. What do you think, Shivani?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sure.
We also have a couple of questions for Sharda that haven't been responded to as well. So maybe do one for KB, one for Sharda, and then we'll do some common ones.
So I'm going to take the one for KB, which is AI related. And I know you responded in the chat, but since I'm not sure if everybody's seeing it, how is AI being used in research and beyond?
Yeah, so much more. I think every area basically thinks that AI is going to transform them, and we are seeing that in the humanities. So we have an initiative around, and this was funded by the Schmidt Foundation, is to support AI for humanities, where you can use these kinds of tools to understand the historical context in which the works were written, and actually understand aspects of the works that are more obscure but come from actually analyzing a large tome, for example. So that's an example that is pretty broad, because the humanists always think about whether AI will play a role there. We work with artists. Artists, when you talk to them about AI, they say, we always embrace the latest technology. It doesn't matter, which it is. Our entire life, that's what we have always done. So it's not surprising to us. And of course, Sharda, I'm sure, has opinions on this too. But in science broadly, around all aspects of science, material discovery, physics. So we have in sustainability, in climate-related sciences. In each one of those areas, they're using AI to consider alternatives like more energy efficient fuels. So it allows you to search for better solutions in a way that was not possible in the past. And you've seen some of the Nobel Prizes this year were basically given to AI in science. So the the narrowness of it, I think, was there maybe 10 years ago, but it's wide open right now.
That's great. Thank you, KB. Shivani, you want to give one to Sharda?
Yes. So Sharda, there's a question for you. Clearly, you've done a lot of transitions. And so the question is around how did you manage the transitions across these different fields, which are all so complex?
Thank you. That's a complex question to answer as well. And sometimes I think it's also that maybe I swing like a pendulum. Like when I go too much towards the artistic side, I want to feel I need to swing back to the to the technical side and vice versa. But so it is a bit of a schizophrenic existence. It's true. But for me, I feel that sometimes that kind of integrated approach, can actually be useful, because in a way, maybe when I was doing my PhD, then it became very much a kind of a kind of processual approach where I was just looking at the materiality and the analysis and so on. And in fact, then when I actually had, and I don't, maybe as it would happen towards the very end of my PhD, I actually maybe quit dancing and I was just focusing on getting all the lab analysis done and everything. But after I finished, and in fact, maybe it was because after I had my daughter, I just wanted her very much to maybe just do a bit of that. So I went back to Bharatanatyam. And then I also found that actually integrating, because in this particular context, of course, there is an integration because I'm actually looking at ancient sculpture, which is all tied up with the dance traditions and so on. But then I felt that it really was helpful actually to go back to reading much more of the philosophical or the devotional literature and the art history and so on in a way that integrated all these approaches rather than just maybe writing a paper which just only said that this has 10% tin and 5%, whatever. So I think that integration, and it also helps you maybe the way to understand the more intuitive approaches, maybe that the craftspeople or the ways in which in antiquity they would have approached all of this, because they didn't, of course, have phase diagrams and things. It was a much more empirical approach. So I think, I mean, of course, I am lucky in this subject where I can draw on many different inputs. So, that's, I think, what also, keeps my interest in the area going and things. Yeah.
So there's another question. Thank you, Sharda. Another question in the chat. What is a core life principle or a personal motto that you have held on to that has helped you in your journey? And I think we can hear from both of you on this one. Maybe KB, you want to go first, and then Sharda.
I think probably for me, I kind of said that lifelong learning, always learn from every situation you're in. You get, and this came up a little bit, what about self-doubt? How do you deal with all of those things? You get knocked back a lot in life, and that's okay. Learn from the situation. I always say I never repeat the same mistake twice. I make new mistakes, but I never repeat the same mistake twice. So that motto of wanting to learn from the people around you, from the situations you're in, results in, I think, just a positive approach. And I do think of myself as a very optimistic, positive person. That's a critical piece of who I am in defining my journey.
Sharda, how about you?
Again, a difficult question, but coming back to that idea, I think that Kumaraswamy throws up with respect to the Nataraja, of poetry, but nonetheless science. I think this aspect of finding poetry in science and finding science in poetry and so on, the harmony of it all, I think that is really what inspires me. And I think, of course, there is the motto, the underlying principle that it is very gratifying also to be able to make a difference. As I said, in this case, I felt that, although IIT was wonderful and I enjoyed being in these very, clinical high-tech labs and things like that, you know. But I felt there I was missing something, maybe the human element. And I can't tell you just how fulfilling it has been actually for me to go to these remote, you know, crafts villages and, you know, talk to these artisans who are so immersed in a different worldview and who are so simple and, you know, they just, it's so unmaterialistic and so on. So I think this aspect of balancing, it should always be, you know, the balance, like the Shiva and Shakti, or the yin and the yang, or the, you know, of the high tech and the low tech. I think we shouldn't lose those perspectives as well. And so, of course, when we talk about an AI-driven world, we also need to, you know, have a compassionate view as to what would happen, in what ways, whether it would displace all these artisanal you know, crafts. So, you know, like for instance, when I remember doing this project on digital heritage, which was wonderful because, of course, we laser scanned all these monuments, and you can laser scan the bronzes and then make replicas and things like that. But you know, there is the danger that you're going to just put all these craftspeople out of work. So what happens to the handicrafts? I mean, at one level, you may say, even within their own communities, you may say that it's inevitable because they also want to move, you know, to become chartered accountants or, you know, less laborious activities. But maybe to find a balance where the drudgery can be removed, but you're still able to express your creativity and the distinctive legacies that, you know, they carry and so on. So these are all the, you know, aspects and challenges that animate my, you know, responses and interactions in these fields. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, KB and Sharda. I know there's a lot of questions people have for KB and Sharda, and also about Lumina. We wish we could go on for longer, but we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So for today, we're going to pause here. For the questions for Lumina, we will be getting back to you. I know that the team has been responding on the Q&A as well, around mentoring circles, around how Lumina is going to work, how we engage. As we look at the program, we want to make sure you understand there's some few events coming up that are already mapped out. And these events will be happening in the early part of next year. So you will see the list of events that are coming up. One in January, that's an in-person event, and then another in February, which is a virtual workshop. From a mentoring perspective, we're very excited to see the interest in mentoring, and we have been asking people to sign up for the mentoring program. So if you can do that, we will be doing both mentoring circles as well as one-on-one mentoring. And before you all drop, we do have a survey. Swati is going to put the link to that in the chat, or you can scan this QR code. We would really, really appreciate if you could take a minute, max 2 minutes, to take that survey and give us your feedback. This will help us as we program forward. And yes, we will be having this recording, and we will be putting it on the Lumina site, so you can all hear the inspirational stories of KB and Sharda, as well as what we're doing with Lumina. With that, Vinaya?
Yes, and with that, we want to thank you all. We have to thank you all for joining us today. It was incredible to be here together. And listen to all your questions, your feedback. I'm seeing a lot of positive comments. A big, big thanks to Sharda and Kavita for taking time off their incredibly, incredibly busy schedule to be with us here today and share these amazing insights. I learned a lot myself. I hope all of you did too. And so we look forward to having many more joint sessions in this journey together. Thank you to the Lumina team. Thank you to IIT Bombay as well.
And I just want to thank you for this wonderful program. It's incredibly inspiring. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here.
Absolutely. Thank you all. That was wonderful, all of you, Shivani and Vinaya and Veena. And it was wonderful to hear Kavita, Anil, and thank you, Swati. It was truly very memorable, and, you know, all the very best going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And as we're closing off, we also want to take a minute to thank the entire team. You can see Veena and Swati on the screen here. Hopefully all of you can see them. We also have Anil, who you all heard from, and then we have Jalpa and Deepthi, who are also integrally involved with this from AA and DRF. So with that, once again, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your being with us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.